and receive a warm welcome. We are so pleased to have you here in this conference cycles about cross-border crime in the northern triangle of Central America and the tri-border of the southern cone, carried out by Inside Crime. There will be a series of 6 events, and our team will be presenting findings of an extensive investigation about organized cross-border crime in these two border areas. This work was sponsored by PMI Impact from Philip Morris International Support Program. In this occasion, we are going to deepen exploring organized crime in Guatemala and its borders. This event has the support of the CAP, the Tackle for Journalists. We are broadcasting live using the Facebook website of Inside Crime in English. Please answer our question and don't hesitate to share yours using the YouTube chat and using social networks in Twitter and Facebook. If you are following this event, you can continually participate using the hashtag bordercrime. This event will be divided in 3 parts. We are going to start with a presentation about the main trends of organized cross-border crime in Guatemala and its borders. After that, we are going to review the different departments or states which have been more impacted using our interactive map. And we are going to present the relation between cross-border crime and corruption. For that purpose, we are going to have the participation of Stephen Dudley and investigators Hector Silva and Alice Papadovassilakis, and Mariels Monson will be the moderator. She is the coordinator of CAP. Steve, the floor is yours. Yes, hi, I'm Steve Dudley, co-founder and co-director of Inside Crime, along with Jeremy McDonough. Thank you for being here with us. I want to tell you about this project and the interactive site that we want to present today. The idea behind the effort was to focus on the triple border area, the Northern Triangle, which is made of by Guatemala, Honduras, and Salvador, and the region of Brazil, Paraguay, and Argentina's border, triple border. For this purpose, we have provided different departments or border states, a total of 39, and these two areas, analyzing the different criminal economies present and different criminal actors behind of those economies. It implies an extensive field investigation that was interrupted because of COVID-19. Big part of the result of this investigation work it's in our website. You can find there different elements of this investigation, department state profiles, data about homicide rates, profiles of the actors, criminal perpetrators, and the scope and about these economies. And you can find all this information in the interactive map. In order to showcase better, we are going to present a video. We are inviting you to visit our website so you can conduct your own research after the procedure or during the investigation process. This is what the current investigators are doing today. So the main goal is to present the main result of our field investigation in Guatemala. We are going to have some time to deepen more. Unfortunately, there is no quick fit for these criminal activities, but we firmly believe that the measures should be strategic and based on both cooperation and the long run. Thank you for your attention. I'm going to pass the floor to Marielos Monson from CAP. She will be the moderator in today's event. Marielos, the floor is yours. Thank you, Steve, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Marielos Monson. I'm a journalist from Guatemala, and I'm the CAP coordinator. Thanks to the Inside Crime team for inviting me and the CAP to participate as partners in this event to deepen and learn more about organized crimes in Guatemala and its borders. This field investigation is published in critical context for Guatemala. During the last years, we have seen how this partnership between elites, a group of organized crimes, and a good part of both public and political institutions to maintain corruption and impunity. Today in Guatemala, there's a fight between the group that are aiming to strengthen justice and fight against criminality, and other groups that want to maintain this criminality and impunity. So this investigation, it's getting in a good time. So we are going to officially start this case study in Guatemala. We want to welcome Hector Silva. He's a colleague, a journalist, and investigator of Inside Crime. He is going to present the criminal mob in Guatemala. Hector, the floor is yours. Good afternoon, Marielos, and thank you for your introduction. Thank you and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm going to summarize about Guatemala's national map based on our findings during the extensive field investigation in the four border department with Honduras and El Salvador. First and foremost, I would like to start talking about the big and the large criminal economy in the country, mainly in these border areas. We have drug trafficking and cocaine trafficking. This is the most important factor. And an important finding, and something that we were able to confirm, that in 2019 was more intensive, and it was responding also to the COVID-19 dynamics, and it's about the revitalization of the different land routes that pass across Guatemala to the north, and they can be fed from different points: Izabal, Chacap, Siquimula, Jutiapa, and that can feed roads in the Pacific to the north, the pathway to Mexico. So Guatemala is still a big platform of cocaine that is being exported to the north. What happened in previous year is that most of the drug was getting there by maritime ways. It was related to public policies and other norms and constraints of the neighbor countries. But what we have seen is that those terrestrial roads that never close, that maybe was kind of a low profile, they are again being revitalized. They have been in use, but they are nowadays used more intensely. So we can say that the platform for drugs landing airway and the Mosquitia, the north of the country, It's going to connect to different routes in Guatemala, and it is going to pass across the Atlantic roads. So it has an impact in the three border areas, namely in the three states or departments with Honduras. So as a consequence of that, and you can take this as a second conclusion about the change of the criminal groups in Guatemala. So we were able to confirm something that had been happening. The large groups, Los Mendazas, Los Semanas, Los Leon, they are not playing the same level of influence. They have the control of even states. They extend their tentacles to the north and other states. We are aware that they are still playing there. They have a participation in the criminal economy, but somehow they are sharing this control with other players, with other actors, those actors with already mentioned by Marielo, and it has a relation with the weakness of the Guatemala government, what they call the anti-corruption or the Chapina Spring never got to these territories, Cutiapa, Zacapa, Chiquimula, Izapal. We have confirmed that there are different groups. They are even led by public officers or politicians or members of public forces, and in some areas they could be even more powerful compared to narco traffic group kingpins. And Morales is a good example. It's located in Isabel. Morales, it's a city very close to the border with Honduras, and we can call it a stronghold of the Mendoza's criminal group. We were able to confirm this when we paid a visit there. They still have a visit. They still have control on the different government organizations. They have a strong relationship with the police forces, and we can say there is kind of a pact of silence. People was kind of whispering, but not talking loud about this. But we can say that they don't have absolute control in this area. They have to share power, and we were able to read a news about how local officers were involved in corruption cases. In the past, it was connected to the large group, but nowadays we can say there is a combination of groups, of powers, and we can call this an atomization. It can be translated into those groups sharing power, sharing roads, and locations. And there is something that it's kind of a feature, an organic feature of these groups. And those kind of situations are also creating violence. And this violence is growing as the atomization increases. We can say that in the past they were having this kind of peace agreements in silence. We nowadays can say that they have more weapons, more government agents participating, and there's more friction. This is something evident. We can connect to the homicide rates, and something you can see in the interactive map as Steve was presenting. And Zacapa is one of the departments or states when we can see this more detailed. They have higher homicide rates compared to the rest of the countries. And in 2019, for every 100,000, the homicide rate was higher compared to the rest of the country. 60 by every 100,000 inhabitants, which is very high homicide rates compared to 20 to 30. There has been the common average for the rest of the country. Yeah, I mean for 100 inhabitants. And number three, First was the reactivation of different terrestrial roads. Second, more participation of political and government agents. Number three, it's corruption. What Mariella's mentioned previously. What is the relation with the organized crimes? We can say there is a symbiosis corruption. It's penetrating the entire country, and it has connection with this criminal activities in the border. When you analyze Zacapa, Jutiapa, Izabal, it's different dynamics compared to Guatemala City. So this institutional push we observed in previous years during Paris Molim. When we have a claimant connected to the Sihid role, FESI, the Constitutional Court, something that we experienced in the past in the center of the country. We can say that on the borders, it was not playing a determinant role. We can see that after Zitzib left the country, there was a weakening of the anti-corruption policies, and at central level, those actors are not really having a relevant role. We can talk about the UCM party, that they have been very strong. We can say that mayors, despite they have open legal process, they are in public positions. What we can see nowadays, it's kind of an abandoned area, a weak state or government. We have more groups fighting for control, and also creating the atomization of criminal economies. Drug trafficking is number one criminal activity, but we have more. I'm going to talk about human trafficking. I'm going to give you an example. In 2018, 2019, the traffic of jade, which is nothing new, already exists, but it was possible recently to seize 10 tons of jade that was illegally struck in Isabel, according to research of the Ministry of Public Affairs. The governor of Isabel gave the permission, and he made all the connection, even with the police and the landlords. So enabling illegal destruction of the jade and the export of the jade. But fortunately, it was seized. I don't know if it was more. Mario, I want to stop there. The floor is yours again. Thank you, Hector. Very clear. I want to start with a question. What can you tell us about the disconnection between political elitism and the criminal groups and the other agents that exist qualified as a state or government co-opted and captured by these criminal activities? Do you think that we are still in this situation? So elites, organized crime, and institutionality. What can you tell me about this relationship? I can say that this is still the situation in Guatemala. Of course, mine and inside crime position is not the only one, but we want to differentiate between the central level and the rest of the country. Even in Guatemala, I think there is a consensus with regards to CCs that live in the country and the efforts of the anti-corruption, because there was a partnership between economic elites and other organizations. So we are back in a situation, and there is a big struggle because they want to appropriate the different institutions, the motor judge was a very sad case. They were trying to capture the Kurd, and this is just an example about what's going on with regards to this situation, and it's not finished. And I think it's somehow revitalized. And when it comes to the different territories, this kind of influences, connection, this cooptation never stopped there, and the emergence of the big drug dealing or drug trafficking groups. And Alex is going to talk about this in more detail. I was talking about the ex-governor of Isabel and the public institution in both Isabel and Morales. So this is still what we can see today in the country, and it's even more evident in those territories. Hector, you were talking about a weak government. Some people say that there is a weak state for some things and a state, strong state for some other things. When it comes to prosecuting criminals and drug dealing, is weak. But when it comes to repression against the people that protest, it's very strong. What can you tell me about the connection of these path with illicit economies? Yes, we can say that on the territories, and we can talk about Isabel. The different officers, even officers from the Navy, when we talk about the entry points, and they say, yes, of course, we know it's getting here, but we don't have the resources to prevent this drug to get here. It's simple. We don't have the resources. This is what they tell us from the Navy. The weakness was evident, and it was accepted by the agents of the state. But before we arrived, we were able to confirm the government actions to prevent people to leave their huts. So there was an event, and there was a murder of U.S. Navy officers, and they decided to stop people from leaving their homes, and they give an impression of a very strong state and government. But this type of influence never stopped, and roads and drug trafficking never stopped. It was an ongoing situation in those territories. Also, migrants, human trafficking. We visited the formal border areas, and in those states, Chiquimula, and migrants was something we were able to see on a daily basis. Of course, COVID creates different dynamics. In 2019, it was a kind of a normal situation for both official border areas and blind spots. Of course, you can see they are using all their capacity and capability, similar to the example of the migrant caravan from Honduras. So something we were able to confirm in different territories. We have questions from the audience. Please, if you can provide shorter answers, I will appreciate that. One of the participants is asking which are the larger groups and the smaller armed actors which infiltrated in Guatemala and that made Guatemala as a country of transit for drug trafficking. And number two, which is the relation between narco traffic and homicide as an indicator of violence in the different states. Were you able to remark that? I'm going to use simple words. Armed groups in this territory, for instance, Isabel, The larger armed groups are still the ones that are related to the traditional clans, Mendozas or Lesamas and Zacapas, the ones that heritage the power. They still maintain control. So the one that receive the power, they have employees, people, armed people, to be kind of a paramilitary structures, and sometimes they have surveillance, and even by the public agents. I can say that with the exception of Utiapa, there are gangs, MS-13 or MS-18, which is very common in other countries. It's not the problem there. It's not a problem there. They are not present there in Izabal, Chiquimula, and Secapa. They have no big presence. And with regards to narco traffic and homicide, it's similar to what I mentioned in Zacapa. It's another kind of a hazard violence, indiscriminate violence. We can say that violence in San Pedro Sula, MS-3, MS-18, and some areas in Salvador, we can talk about a more organic. But here, violence is related to the business, with regards to really protecting those borders, criminal revenge amongst these groups, trying to show power with regards to this restructuring process. And of course, these criminal groups are dedicated to drug trafficking, cocaine trafficking, and at the end of the day, this is the main driver to increase violence, and this is what we were able to see in Zacapa. Hector, you say that in Guatemala you are moving backwards with regards to the impunity and this criminal groups alliance that were able to push back the CICIG that is having an influence of the Ministry of Public Affairs that has control agency in the government, the Congress, and they are looking for also the courts, the institutional courts. And as you mentioned, the anti-corruption fight was focused in the capital, but was not able to reach the different states. What's your opinion with regards to this reorganization of this type of power, and what is the impact in the country and in border areas? I'm going to give you a brief countries because Alex is going to give you different examples that better illustrate this question with corruption, impunity, and the reality we are facing where political and corrupt actors know that they don't have to respond to the justice, is that they feel empowered and they can cascade this power not only to deputies, judges, or magistrates. The point is that the power of political powers in Congress, it's connected to that because they are somehow protecting those players. In Guatemala, political parties also have land power in the territory, and they get it through the townhouse, and it's also connected to the past of the traffic. And I think Alice would elaborate more in this regard. Thank you, Hector. And I'm going to talk to Alex. Alex, please, can you answer this briefly? We have seen in other countries narco political parties. We are talking about narco political parties in Guatemala. Do you think this is the current situation in Guatemala to have this mafia political parties? Okay, as we know, Guatemala is a political system that have more parties compared to other countries. In every political election, we have around 20 or more parties, and we have some of them which are strongly related to trafficking. For instance, UCN recently the FESI they request to cancel the UCN as a political party. And the leader of this political party in 2019 was extradited and was sentenced in the United States because of his connections to the Sinaloa cartel. Many mayors and deputies have proven links with drug trafficking. So this kind of the role model of the narco party in Guatemala. I can say that this is the name of the game with the normal thing. Thank you, Alex. Okay, we are going to ask you please to start your presentation. Thank you to Hector Silva. Alex is here with us. Alex Papadopoulos. He's a journalist and an inside crime investigator, and he will share some of the main findings of this field investigation of 2 years in the borders of Guatemala. Alex, the floor is yours. Thank you, Marielos. Yes, just to complement a little bit to Hector's analysis at national level, I will drill down with regards to the main analyses in the border areas of Guatemala. And maybe the most evident fact is that the cocaine trafficking represents the most lucrative or profitable economy in this border area of Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. And I want to highlight the Izapal department case. It's located in the Caribbean of Guatemala. After this investigation, we call it the perfect storm for cocaine trafficking. Why Izapal and all other state? Because this is the only state in Guatemala that has a combination of commercial port, clandestine runways to receive aircraft and land roads, laboratories, and coca crops. Coca plantation. In San Tomas de Castilla, we have more than 6,000 seizures of drugs and money. And 2019, just in 2019, when we visit Izapal during this investigation, they tell us that this port don't have an X-ray system. They normally use in ports to check containers to see if they are smuggling cocaine or other type of merchandise or illegal merchandise. Despite it was a hotspot with regards to exporting cocaine to United States and Europe, they don't have this. Izapal is also the epicenter of effort with regards to the efforts of drug trafficking groups to produce cocaine. And as 2019, we see 2.2 of coca bushes in the department. 35,000 hectares, around 35,000 hectares, I can say, and this is almost the total coca bushes we see in the country. And this laboratory are concealed in the large forest of Izapal, and you can find also there clandestine runways. And this is a big challenge. It poses a big challenge for the authorities because there are some areas which are tough to access and they don't have the right resources to access. Because of these factors, as we can see in the interactive map, Izapal it's a state with the highest impact because of the cocaine. So this economy it's producing hundreds of millions of dollars for this state, which is a very huge amount. And this is also something else we can see in the neighbor departments and across the border in the west of Honduras. And in this particular area, is one of the hotspots for drug trafficking and criminal activities in general in Central America. I would like to share a second finding with regards to criminal groups trafficking drugs, atomization that Hector mentioned. As he said, there are no group we can say are prevailing or that manage to totally control all these areas like Mendoza's, Lanzasamas, and Jutiapa and other areas. And this is something we can see at the state level. The old groups are still there, but we have put them in the low rank or moderate rank. And this is Sana presence in Zacapa and Izabal. It can be translated in a lower capacity to traffic drugs, less weapons, less people, less territory, and less profit. So the question is, who is trafficking drugs? What we see in the field investigation is that those narco traffic roads are kind of a mix of all groups or all clans, and including family members and partners and emerging groups that could be competing. And in some cases, those emerging groups have the political control, and this is something we want to highlight when we talk about Huichapa. I want to invite you to try the dashboard because you can find profiles that can give you hints about this issue, the fact of the big groups with less power. And we also have kind of nuances with, because some drug traffickers are not connected to a specific clan. Sometimes they play more a logistic role. They just, need to move the drug and deliver to the Mexican cartels that plays a more relevant role. See, for me, this atomization has important consequences. At local level, we are talking about municipalities and not states. They strongly compete to control the area. If you want to read more information, I'm inviting you to go to the dashboard, and you can go department by department or state by state and learn more about those dynamics. Okay, I just want to wrap up my presentation by sharing my last finding, and it was kind of an eye opener for us during our investigation. And this is the amount of money you can earn with human trafficking. More than 2,000 people live in a border state from Guatemala to go to the United States. And most of these people are paying $10,000 or more for the trip. So having in mind these numbers, we realize that migrant trafficking is a very profitable economy, very lucrative in states like that, because it may be creating millions or hundreds of millions of dollars of illicit activities, and this is a huge amount for a department in the east of Guatemala, and this is far from in comparison to the amount you can earn in an legal business, and most of the legal business. And this is one of the most important points in Guatemala, one with Honduras and two with El Salvador. There is a very important migrant route which it's entering Guatemala by Esquipulas and Agua Caliente border areas. This is one of the most used routes by coyotes in Guatemala. As you can see on this dashboard, Chiquimula, it's in the border with the two areas. We qualify this as a high human trafficking level. Maybe you are asking why they are not in red if we say that there are very important economies. I just want to add that we ranked it, but this is relative. We are comparing cocaine trafficking with human trafficking. In cocaine trafficking, it's a more lucrative economy. So we can see that some of the economies are classified as moderate. It just means that compared to cocaine, they are kind of moderate. But in Chuquimula, human trafficking, it's very important. And we can say there are not hurdles, they are just kind of very few hurdles to coyotes because often we find that those coyotes, those guys, are people the community trusts, and the authorities they don't want to go for them, they don't want to prosecute it because they have the perception that those coyotes are rendering service to the community. I'm going to stop here and I want to pass the floor to Mariels. Back to Mariels, please. Thank you, Alice. And we are going to continue this conversation with Hector and Alice about these topics. We have very interesting questions from the audience, and I also have questions. Let's talk about the relationship between mayors and criminal structures. Can we say that there is a road, a kind of a corridor with regards to Chicabal and Izapal and Chiquimula and Izapal estates connected to the center of Guatemala, involving mayors? It's difficult to say because there are many municipalities in this corridor. But what we can see is that in those border areas to the east, there are many mayors which are actually connected to drug traffickers, Izapal, Chiquimula. Those states are connected to the center of Guatemala. Let's say, for instance, Petem or Tepaz, Guatemango, that are close to the border with Mexico. And we also have found links with local policy and narco trafficking. I want to highlight a group and Wistas, the group Wistas. We have been investigating previously in cybercrime in Guatemango that they have a leash link with mayors and with Congress members. And in Petén, they also say that some of the mayors has links with narco traffic. I cannot confirm that there is kind of a corridor saying that all the mayors are connected to narco traffic, but we had seen that when they use a particular route, it's more possible that narco traffic is infiltrating the town halls. Let's talk about Morales and Zabal, which is kind of a stronghold for organized crime. Why do you say the stronghold for organized crime when you say Morales and Isabel? Okay, first and foremost is because it has been traditionally a stronghold for drug dealers, drug traffickers, clan. Those are the Mendoza. This is not their native city, but we can say that it was one of the urban centers where they settle and they dominate. This is one of the most important areas. This particular clan make this area their operation center, the headquarters. We have combines in Valle in Honduras, Metapan, and the Texas cartel in El Salvador. Morales is the similar situation. So control could be translated into access, control the town hall or access to the town hall, accessing public monies, access to public contracts, access to an economy which is fed by public funds, and they are getting profits from it. Normally, it's those are mixed groups. They have other activities which are normally legal activities like development, construction, agribusiness, commerce. So they have some have their footprints in the communities, and they have also geographical control. They have a political control, and they also control through violence. Immorales, this is something that was shocking to me. It was the silence, the tension you can feel, and they warn you you can go to this place but not to this other place. If you're going to talk to a leader, if you talk to a leader even if it's a religious leader, they will speak silent and silent, and if I talk about this, I'm in danger. So that's why we can say that they are still prevailing, and also the connection to the government. Just to address Adra's answer, I can say there is no kind of a corridor or a total supply chain which is ruled by the mayors. But in those areas, in the border areas, the west, the east, and the north, we have areas, Moyote, Chiapa, Ipale, Morales, Ocos, San Marcos. An ex-prosecutor in Guatemala, we were able to interview. We asked a similar question. He said, I don't know if all the roads, but the Pacific to the Salvador and to the west, heading to Mexico, it's full of this situation. So it's a real situation. So we can say there is a kind of a corridor. Okay, for the sake of time, please try to answer more briefly. Alex, during your investigation, were you able to detect the presence of international mafia or cartels in the triple border area? Okay, I want to explain first about modality. In the past, Mexican organizations like Sinaloa's cartel, they send their people to conduct business with Honduras and Guatemala. But during our field investigation, we realized that they subcontract people to move the drug to from there to Mexico. So you are not going to find Sinaloa's cartel in Ixtapal. You are not going to find Jalisco's cartel cell in El Salvador. But of course, you are going to find representative businessmen, women in their territory conducting business. Let's say when Zetas arrived to Guatemala in the 2000s, and this is something we were not able to observe in our study. I have a question connected to one. What were the key drivers or elements you found to assure that there is less presence of Lorenzana of Mendoza? Because no one of the people we interview in the territory were talking about a ruling group, a prevailing group, including Zacapa. When we talk about these groups, they say, yes, they are here, they have activities here or there in this village, but they also say there are other groups which are more connected to politics. For instance, in Zacapa, in the head municipality, this power relate to illegal groups. It's in the hands of politicians. And we talked to officers, public officers in Zacapa, and they have been in their position for decades, and they have seen the evolution of these clans. They say those large groups are weak. They are not here in Zacapa. I'm going to give you an example of Honduras, but you can apply it to Guatemala. When it comes to a total control of cities, those cities are kind of strongholds. When they were ruling, they were able to close the city. They were having their family parties, and it was like a religious party of the town, of the municipality. But it's not like this anymore because they don't have this level of control in the territory. So this is something very clear with regards to this evolution, this change. When it comes to the inside crime activities, the sources, and the way you conduct research. And this is a question for the audience. The Ministry of Public Affairs of Guatemala is an agency that anti-narcotic bodies of the United States trust. What happened with the MP head or leader and other agents which are in the states or departments? This is a very tricky question. We cannot talk from the United States agencies. Maybe Steve Dagley it's the most indicated person to address such a question, but we can say that these agencies in the United States they tend to trust the public officers, mainly those they advise or provide some support, economic support. But I think that it may vary according to the situation and time. I think in this particular point in history, the silence with regards to the General Prosecutor Office, it's something that is shedding a light with regards to the type of situation or relation that we have nowadays. And in the territories, we have kind of the same. Those United States agencies are not getting there. In Puerto Barrio, yes, of course, because we have companies from the states there, but in Mendoza, Zacapa, and more, we don't have the presence of international agencies. When it comes to trust, the population trusting the public forces, we can say is not bad. It's similar to other countries in Central America. At the end of the day, you can say they trust the police because it's not a police officer that is going to rob a citizen. It's a police officer that may be a partner of a drug trafficker to move cocaine. So those dynamics are more complex in the territory. Steve, maybe you can help us a little bit more with this question. Can can you elaborate more in this regard? I don't know if you can hear me. What I can say, what Hector said. Sometimes it's similar to a pendulum. Maybe at some point there's big trust in some prosecutors, and in some instances, no. Silent speaks a lot in this particular situation. The things that for us are key indicators are those special units that because they develop relationship with the special units, and something remarkable when it comes to the investigations they carry out along with these units. So we cannot talk about the Ministry of Public Affairs in general. We can talk about those particular special units. They have sometimes a very close and sometimes not that close relationship, but they are kind of the key spokesman or woman, and it talks a lot about this relationships. A last question for this block. We have a great deal of questions, but we are going to have the last one for the sake of time. Something which is crucial in Guatemala and Central America. This is migration. So we can say that it's more evident the different hazards migrants face when they are moving through the states and countries. They have more threats, drug traffickers, human traffickers. It's a real threat for them. What happened in Tamaulipas just a few days ago. So, what can you tell us as a conclusion with regards to the role of local authorities and the role of this human trafficking illegal groups and that sometimes involve agents and the role of the National Guard? And what about these dynamics with regards to migrants? Okay, what we can say it's recently Latin American police were not kind of prosecuting migrants. So we have just a few cases or almost no cases with regards to authorities in El Salvador prosecuting migrants or treating them as criminals. And those which are not CA4 migrants from the Caribbean, Asia, or Africa, they sometimes stop them and ask them, but they were not prosecuting. But what happened in Guatemala, they have been stopped and they have been treated somehow as criminals. During the Trump administration, the law changed, and what we can say that the kind of a harassment of from criminal authorities and Mexican authorities, they also need to face a criminalization by local authorities. This is more a political issue than criminal. But from the criminal side, we know that there are human trafficking groups, coyotes, that sometimes are linked to those trafficking groups, and they are going for a separate illegal activity or separate economy. So we need to see if this is going to change with this more draconian approach of the new administration. So in the last 3 years, Honduras migrants need to face this possibility to be attacked by the Guatemalan authorities. Sorry for that, but I need to take some minutes from your presentation. Were you able to observe kind of a diversification with regards to crimes, like say drug dealers that were counterfeiting documents or going for this human trafficking? Yes, several drug trafficking groups that were involved in drug trafficking in Guatemala, they start smuggling merchandise, but the main commerce routes that move through El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala, I can of the same roads drug traffickers are using. So there are many cases where groups can start smuggling, let's say, cheese or some other local gadgets or merchandise, and maybe they after that they got involved in drug trafficking. So we can say the logistics is kind of similar in many cases. Yes, we can say that. Yes. Okay, thank you, Alex and Hector and Steve. And we are going to continue with Alex's presentation. This is a story that happened in Mojuta, Japan, and the Pacific of Guatemala, strategic area with regards to drug trafficking, and it's a municipality that have increased the political violence level. So we are going to also learn about a good example about the symbiotic relation of organized crimes and political elites. Alex, the floor is yours. Thank you, Marielos. I want to elaborate more and I want to complement the dashboard explanation. So we decided to write 6 case studies, extensive investigation about corruption in this border areas in the northern triangle and the triple border in the southern cone. And the case of Guatemala, we made the decision to talk about Moyuta that we published today in our website. As Marielo said, this is kind of a small municipality, 45,000 inhabitants approximately. The main economic activities, commerce, livestock, fishing, and agriculture. Those no very robust legal economies. The current mayor of Mayuta, you were able to see a picture, so Roberto Marroquin. He's kind of the key hotspot because of the links he has with drug trafficking groups. Why Moyuta? As you can see here on the chart, as Marielo said, Moyuta is a very strategic location when it comes to drug trafficking. Cocaine trafficking is located in the Pacific. The beaches there had almost no surveillance, and for many years, traditionally, the drug traffickers have been taking their drug there, so other groups from Central America can pick those those merchandise. And the municipality also have different warehouse for drug. So it's not only about a transit hotspot, but it's also a place you can use for the warehouses as a storage place. As Hector mentioned, this Pacific Coast area is one of the key entry points of cocaine traffic in the area, in the region. Because of that, Millota is being a battlefield for the drug trafficking groups, and those groups had understood that by controlling the local town hall and politicians will bring benefits like controlling better the industry of drug trafficking, and it includes the family of the current mayor Roberto Marroquino. I'm going to give you more details about this story. I'm inviting you to read the investigation in our website. But to summarize, they have been facing tremendous violence, wave of violence, including massacres and an atmosphere of insecurity. For instance, during the mayor's campaigns in 2018, there was a massacre in a hotel in the border with El Salvador, and an armed group of men entered and murdered 8 people, including Mayra Lemos Perez. She was a candidate. She was running for office at the time in the town hall. And during the election, a different candidate was murdered. He was running for the council, and it was a part of a wave of violence in Jutiapa at the time. According to the investigation, both candidates that were killed during the political campaign in 2011, they belonged to clans that were connected to drug trafficking, and they had a rivalry with Roberto Marroquin that won the mayor's office for the first time. Roberto Marroquin was also attacked. He suffered an attack when he's alive, and and the sister of Meira coordinated with the police with bombs and firearms against Roberto Marroquin. But so far, Roberto has been able to survive the different attacks, and he's had been able to consolidate his power in this municipality. He is using a blind pickup truck and bodyguards. Sometimes 15 guys are protecting his life, and despite the different prosecution and cases, he denied any participation in any criminal activity, murder or drug trafficking, and nobody have been able to present concrete evidence despite all this the situation. So it's important to understand why this level of violence to maintain control in this particular area in the Pacific. In Guatemala, mayors they have much power. They can control the security forces, the law enforcement orders, and when they are trafficking drones, they can command the police to do other activities. On the other hand, it's also important the control they have with regards to public works contracts, civil works, garbage collection, and the like. These contracts could be used for money launderings or to pay the political favors or political campaign donations. Mayors they have to work with members of the Congress. They can sponsor candidates to run from the office and the presidency, and those positions, the role they play are very important when it comes to protecting these drug trafficking activities and other activities in different areas in Guatemala. But maybe the most important factor is the level of immunity. And there are just few cases when this immunity of mayor is removed. It may happen. In 2019, it happens. It was the Nueva Concepción Escuintla in the Pacific. This mayor, he was captured because he was linked with drug trafficking, with drug being trafficked, getting to the coast of Colombia. Being a mayor, it's a good facade to be protected against prosecution and investigation. So maybe we want to get back to the previous discussion. Mayors are key partners for those drug trafficking groups in this atomized panorama, because those groups are looking for partners that can control small territories and that could link them with the political world. According to our findings in Guatemala, power decentralization may be useful to foster cross-border crime, and in border areas, these political institutions are the most respected ones. And this is something that we were able to confirm during our study of the Northern Triangles. Mayors had power, but they don't have budgets compared to drug traffickers. And drug traffickers can profit this situation to position their partners in town halls. So just to wrap up, those are key players or key actors in the new panorama of Guatemala. And I'm going to stop my presentation here. Marilos, the floor is yours. Alex, thanks a lot. It's very interesting. Very interesting investigation, and you can learn more on Inside Crimes website. We have more questions from the audience. One of the question is related to this immunity you mentioned, the right when prosecuted that it's common of different officers, including the president, vice president, mayors, judges, and other public officers. So when sometimes there are some judges or magistrates that are not removing this immunity, and it translates into impunity. In the past, Jimmy Morales had different requests with regards to removing his immunity, and he was protected by the courts. The courts. And so, what is the role of these influence network, influence trafficking networks, and legal system that involve even attorneys and public officers to protect these actors that are clearly connected to corruption and other illegal activities? I would say that this is one of the most important strategies organized crime groups has to block any investigation or prosecution against them. A clear example is the attack against cultists. Those are political mafia against schools. Excuse me. They are trying to put their guys in the courts, the people in the courts, to block the justice from operate. The case of a Minamoto judge is a good example. So there are, let's say, dark people that has pending cases from FESI. What they are trying to achieve is to put their people there so they can hinder, they can block if someone is trying to remove their immunity, and to also block any investigation or prosecutions against them. So this is one of the key strategies they have as a group. A different question from the audience. Which local authorities or families are involved in crimes and drug trafficking? Can you give us more names, Hector? In general, Moyuta case is a good example. The investigation you can find in our website is not only about a mayor, it's about three families. Those are local families, and according to the investigation and different investigation conducted by the Ministry of Public Affairs, and is being supported by different other government agents. Those families that start playing a role in local economies, they are in the right time and in the right place. Those are families that are involved in local economic activities. In Moyuta, let's see, for instance, the boat family that traditionally were devoted to fishing, and they encounter a more profitable merchandise, which is normally cocaine. In Moyuta, we can see there were three family clans, and in the specific case of Moyuta, is not only the mayor's family, also the Perez Melemos family, Rodriguez family, that were involved in drug trafficking. The name of other agents from the government, it makes no difference. It could be the local police chief, local prosecutor, department or state government, the Navy commander, chief commander. So at the end of the day, the system is going to protect them. Names are going to change depending of the time and place. We talk about the Mojuta. Before Marroquin, it was a different mayor that was protected by different uh, police chief or not protected but was used for protection. And in Jutiapa, we have the Leones, Manolito Castillo, names change, but the system itself, it's what we can say it's still there. And for sure, if we investigate in some years, after some years, the names are going to change for sure. We visit on Honduras and the border, the current police chief was talking about the previous one, and in the future, the new one is going to talk about the previous one. So cooptation. When it comes to cooptation, mayors have to work with Congress members. They can support um, candidates running through office. And Alice mentioned with the particular case, the UCM candidate Mario Estrada that was extradited to the States for drug trafficking, but his party had still a group of representatives in Congress, and they also requested the cancellation of this party, but they have many legal resources to delay or hinder this process. So we can talk about a mafia or an election system that it's a mafia election system or belongs to a mafia state. I cannot say it is itself a mafia system. It's difficult to find other parties with this large presence like you see in Honduras. There are two big parties, and they are both connected to drug trafficking. In Honduras, the system is different, but I think it doesn't depend on the system itself. It depends more about cooptation and about the idea that the government or the state it's kind of a prize or long-hanging fruit because the one that acts there can also play a role with regards to these criminal groups partnerships. And I want to finish with this from Guatemala. One of the main constraints of these reforms, which is six and 16, is the legal system. Because at the end of the day, then we can have concrete evidence, but if at the end of the day you have the legal system which is coopted by the criminal groups, is going to happen what's happening in Guatemala with institutional courts. And it's more about the nature of political mafia that it's a repetition here in Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. And we are going to elaborate more when we can talk about this dynamic in the Southern Cone. And this is a question from the audience. What strategies can we use from civil society so the state can perform against these groups and this Guatemala border situation and the North Triangle countries? What's missing is the central government that could back up these border areas where we conducted our investigation. We were able to see that they don't have resources at local level to fight against this drug trafficking. What a civil society organization could do one is to protest, to push more the central government, aiming at improving the different and legal institutions at local level. Something that I thought was very interesting We were able to talk with a specialized unit against drug trafficking of the MP, and they say when we visit some of the areas, we are not going to mention the local unit because they are infiltrated and they are concerned about infiltrating information about the groups we are investigating. So I think at central level, the name of the game will be developing capability of the specialized units, not only at central level, but also the local units, and also giving more resources. It will be a way to put more pressure, and this is something that can be done by the civil society groups. Thank you, Hector and Alex, for this a very nice exchange and conversation. Thank you, Inside Crime and Steve Dowlings, for this invitation to moderate. And it's been a great pleasure to share this forum about organized crimes in Guatemala and its borders. And we are going to keep an eye about these stories, countries like Guatemala and other countries in Central America, because it shed light with regards where to focus with regards to these criminal activities. And Steve, the floor is yours, so you can wrap up officially the event. Maybe your mic is mute, Steve. Sorry, I was talking with myself. Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot, Marielle. It's been a great pleasure to have you moderating this forum, an excellent moderator. And thanks to the audience that joined us. You were able to see that this is a very tricky situation, and it has been evolving. Being after 10 years, we start conducting investigation in Guatemala. We were talking about the searches from Mexico, and violence achieve very high levels. And nowadays we can talk about symbiotic relation between political world and political parties or groups in those areas. Violence had decreased somehow, but we see this atomization of groups. So it's also causing more trouble for the government and to be able to control the situation. We are going to keep moving forward. We are going to continue investigating and presenting to you these results. So I'm inviting you to visit our website, insight.org. And thank you, Alex and Hector, our investigators, for this extensive investigation of 2 years. Thanks, Marielos, and thanks to the CAP for the support. And I want to thank everybody behind this website effort, the platform, and also the one that were involved in the production of this event. Also thank to our sponsor, the PMI Impact. And I'm going to pass the floor to our MC, Sarah Garcia. Sarah. Thank you, Steve. So, in order to continue with these conference cycles, next 16th of February, Tuesday, we are going to discuss the findings from Honduras, the situation of the borders and corruption cases. You can learn more details in our website, insightcrime.org. Thank you for joining us and for your active participation. Please keep an eye on our website. We are going to publish a paper about this event, and we are going to address some of the questions we were not able to address. We also want to invite you to share your comments using the hashtag border crime.